So the first step in your project is to actually start building your base image. The idea here is that you want to have a nice sense of space and depth. So I just went online and found a couple pictures. You can see that I have a cool space sky image. And I intentionally picked one that has, some spots I can move for if I want a dark sky or if I want a cool bright sky. I found an image of land. So this already has built-in sense of depth because it's a photo of a world that has a lot of depth. Um, what I want to do though is I want to be able to cut out pieces of this, much like we've done for collages and such. So I'm going to make use of layer masking. And again, to layer mask, you make sure you're on the layer that you want to mask. And you're going to hit this little button down here at the bottom of your layers panel. It's a little box with a circle in it. You're going to get a little thumbnail that pops up on the layer that says, hey, I'm working here on the layer mask itself. And the way a mask works is it's black and white with a paintbrush. White is visible. Think of it as it's in the light, you can see it. Black is invisible, which means it's in the shadows, you cannot see it. So right now it's white, so I see everything. If I use a black paintbrush, make sure my color is set to black, I can color and essentially erase what I don't want to see. Now the advantage of doing this versus an actual eraser is if I use white, I can actually paint back in the pixels and see and reveal what I accidentally erased. That gives us lots of flexibility in being able to go back and fix things. So I'm just going to do a quick cutout, and I'm not going to worry about being overly precise, right? The fun of this is you're not being graded on perfect and amazing craftsmanship. So I am basically just with a black paintbrush cutting out the sky that I don't want to see on that particular layer. And what that does is it allows me to see the pixels that are on the layer underneath. So I can move my sky around and I can start building a scene there, which is pretty cool. Now I've got this wonderful scene, but I want to have more elements in it. I want to be able to control stuff. So I've actually, I don't know, I have a thing for vintage images. So I found some vintage images and already did cutouts. So you can actually see kind of what I did. So the woman one, I cut her out. There's actually a radio. The picture of that was these women posing, but I just really like that radio record player since this is a music album. I also cut out this picture of this kid riding in this little car. So that gives me some elements that I can then use to move around and build my scene. The idea here for your base image is that you would like to have, I don't know, something that's interesting and intriguing, but allows you some flexibility of playing with color and value to kind of craft an image. So you want something that's kind of vague. And I don't know what I'm doing, honestly, for this. Maybe the woman wants to be really big. Turn off the radio and the kid for now. Maybe I want to have a really big woman standing here, right? And we're playing with a sense of depth. If we scale her down, right, she looks maybe a little bit more human-sized in the scene. If I make a copy of her, the easiest way is to click on the layer, drag it down to the new layer icon. Now I have two of them, right? That idea of relative size and optical illusions, we've all sort of seen those, right? So if I move her further back so it looks like she's further back and standing on the ground, now she looks huge. Right, so I can always free transform. Again, Control T or Edit, free transform. Hope if I'm under Edit, free transform. I could shrink her down, and now I could have a bunch of them. Maybe if I want, I can right-click on the free transform And we can do our scale, rotates, things like that, but we can also flip. So maybe I have a couple of these and they're kind of having a stare down at each other. I could start building some sort of scene out of that. I could play with size, I could play with positioning. She's standing on top of this building. If I want, maybe if I put her way back here and I play with layering, I can put her maybe underneath the land layer, but above the star layer, and now she's back out there, right? And that could be something very, very fun to play with. Maybe I have a big version of her in space staring stuff down. That could be kind of fun. I've also got this radio, and I liked the radio because it's an interesting shape and feels like it could be like one of these little buildings. So again, maybe I just have this and I can rotate it a little bit so it looks like it's sort of sitting into the hillside. We can play with overlapping, right? So now this feels like it's in front of that thing back there. Again, I can make copies. Maybe I have another one that's small and is way back here. Right, so I can start building up sort of this sense of depth by planting sort of these little radios all over this landscape. And maybe we'll have one more somewhere. Maybe, I don't know, over here. I don't know, right? You guys have all watched Bob Ross and the Happy Little Trees. We'll have some happy little, I want a big one over here. Happy little radios all over the place. Right, we'll plant one on this tree or on this ground, and maybe it's so big here that it starts overlapping into the space area, right? So that's one really big one way up here. And then maybe this one over here needs to get a little bit smaller or moved back so that we can play with some scale. So now we have a bunch of these little radios sort of dotting the landscape. What that does and means, I have no idea, but that's kind of the fun thing. In this case, maybe I don't want the woman anymore. Maybe I just want this kid. I'm going to move her up here. She's just driving into the scene. You know, she's the lead singer, or for whatever reason, wants to become a focal point. Right, so we got a little kid kind of hanging out, driving through this wonderful world full of giant radios. And actually, now that we're doing that, I think I kind of like the idea of this woman being very massive somewhere out there. And I'm going to put her underneath. Right. Now I'm creating kind of this interesting dynamic, right? There's this nice diagonal sense of movement through the piece. I've got room for some text up here. And that starts setting me up for having a nice composition that I have no idea what this is and what this even means, but that's okay, right? The fun of this is I can now start playing with color and value and exploring, highlighting different areas and bringing in focus and emphasis and all that stuff. So for now, this is going to work as a first round, setting up my base image.